So welcome everybody to episode of History That Unites. Here with our very own Roger Persaud. And so bring in Karen here. Karen, what would you like to say about History That Unites today?
Well, as far as history that unites, aside from how history unites, we also are doing other uniting things. Like you and I, Emily, we bring the flair of the World Ability Podcast Network to what we're doing with this video. And we met Roger through over here. We got the number 9 to 5 club. So there's great stuff to be said there. And then Roger introduces us to over here, we have Haitian Orphans Wish. But before we get into any of all that, we've got a great story. We got a little reveal before we came on to do this show, a little bit what Roger has in mind. And Emily and I are really excited, and we're always excited about everything we're doing with Roger. But right now, we're worried about this new story with a new twist. Bring it on in, Roger. What do you have for us today? It sounds exciting.
Thank you, Emily. Thank you, Kurt. Today, I want to talk about the role of women in World War II. Now, most of you know the stories of Rosie the Riveter, and I was fortunate enough to meet some of these people. When I went to Oklahoma in the 70s, I met some of the Rosie the Riveters that were still active. And these women did an amazing job. They learned some amazing skills that were really just male skills, but they found ways to work it and help build aircraft. These women built the B-66s, the B-44s, the B-17. These women did an amazing job. But I want to introduce you to a different group of women. Now imagine in World War II, the stakes couldn't be higher. We were trying to break the codes that the Nazis were using. And we had cryptographers, we had code breakers, and they were working, but they just couldn't get the job done. And somebody had a brilliant idea. They brought in thousands of young American female college graduates, not cryptographers, not specialists in coding. They were math majors, music majors, history and English majors. Someone thought that they would bring a totally new way of looking at things, and they did. They brought a spirit of cohesiveness. They were all together in this effort, and they worked together, and they helped break the codes that finally the Allies could use and break through. And this story is a story that shows resilience. It shows how different thinking, what we call today thinking outside the box. Now, I don't know who to credit for this idea, but I know somebody had to come up with something brilliant. And they brought in these women, and they were young women. Obviously, they were American women. They were patriots. They were ready to do what it took to promote the cause of freedom. And they worked their tails off. And they figured out, they had skills in pattern recognition. And this is one of the skills that they utilized to help break the enemy codes. They were a tremendous help during World War II. But that story, for some reason, is not told very much.
Wow. Well, fascinating.
That's
First time
awesome
you
story.
heard that too, Emily? That was a new one for me. How about you?
I think so. I don't know if I totally heard that story or
Yeah,
that version anyway.
There's another story I want to tell you about women. There were Russian fighter pilots, female fighter pilots, that would bomb Germany at night. They called them the Night Witches. They were an all-female fighter pilot group, and they were just dropping gravity-fed bombs. But they were effective because nobody expected them to reach that level. So, we always think there's certain jobs that are for men, there's certain jobs that are for women. But you got to realize when push comes to shove, everybody can fit into the space that you think they could not fit into and get that task done and done right.
There you go. What do
Right,
you think,
right.
Emily?
Yeah,
Emily, do you think
I can agree with that. Yeah.
so? Emily, what do you think about, like we're at war right now? What do you think, Emily, if you were called in to play a part in the war going on right now? What would you think about that, Emily?
Actually, sure, it sure depend on what they're asking me, what role they were looking for me to do.
Yeah, but what if it was
One
about
thing.
the kind of stuff Roger's talking about, being part of, outwitting, the other side of the war and, figuring out all their tricks, solving the puzzle of all that? Is that a role you'd want to play, Emily?
That could be cool. I could,
It
like
could be
that.
cool.
I could see amazing roles for women in war as it changes. War is becoming more autonomous. You don't have to put on big boots and go fighting somewhere. You can sit behind a computer and control a drone. I'm going to tell you this: women make excellent pilots. I know that from personal experience. And if they're motivated enough to come into that career, they will bust their tails to prove that they can be as good as men. I have seen that myself. And we treat them like crap. We talk about them like crap. We try to pick them up, but they do the job. And I can see expanded roles for women these days because I'd rather have a woman controlling a drone going after somebody that I want to take care of than a guy who might be distracted. Because one thing women have that's better than men, and that's proven in the code breakers, the female code breakers of World War II. Women have focused, Emily, focused intuition. Men don't have that. We can focus, but our intuition is not as strong as women.
What do you think of that, Emily? Have you ever thought of being a pilot, flying aircraft? Has that ever crossed your mind?
Maybe at different times, but yeah, not
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, fleeting thoughts. So it'd be kind of cool if you actually found yourself invited into an airplane and someone was able to teach you how to fly or do the simulation stuff first, and all of a sudden you
Yeah.
fly. That would not be for me. I've got acrophobia, Roger. So you wouldn't catch me being a pilot. I'll be the ground crew. I'll help you take off. That's me.
Well, phobias are phobias, and but the thing is, if you're scared of it, then you shouldn't try it because you've built up stuff in your head, and we don't have time to work on that. But really, anybody can become a pilot. Anybody who can follow proper instructions, have the discipline to always follow instructions and checklists. That's all it takes, really. Now, in my day, you had to learn a lot of math, a lot of physics, a lot of different stuff because you had to know, you had to flip switches and know what you're moving. Sometimes you're moving air or hydraulic fluid or fuel. You're moving them around the airplane, and you got to know what you're doing. Nowadays, that's all automated. The pilot don't have to know any of that. It's all completely automated. It's funny when I listen to people talking about AI and losing jobs and AI. When I started in aviation, there were 5 people in the cockpit. 5. And as technology advanced, as things developed, it's now been reduced to 2. To 2. And by the way, I could mention something here that's nothing to do with history, but I could tell you something. The most important regulation in aviation in the last 75 years is something called ETOPS. And that's an acronym. The guys on the ground, Kurt, you would know the guys on the ground call it engines turn or people swim. But ETOPS is extended total range for 2-engine aircraft. Now, here's the deal. you were not allowed to fly direct with less than 4 engines. Aircraft had to fly close to 200 miles to the nearest suitable landing site. You couldn't fly as the crow flies. But ETOPS switched that, and now you could fly as the crow flies. And that changed everything in aviation. Changed finances, changed crew size, crew length. And by the way, the guy who wrote ETOPS, I actually got to meet that guy and work with him for several years. Raymond Casabletta, Captain Raymond Casabletta. He was chief pilot at Delta, and he was my chief pilot at North American Airlines. A brilliant mind.
Great stuff. Great stuff. Emily, let's come back to this, story from the perspective of women with World War II. Emily, you do work in legitimacy, and other factors for women. What do you think about this aspect? What comments would you make, Emily, as a woman, to look at when you're hanging out with us guys? I'm trusting that you see this thing, the inequity between men and women. You experience that, true?
Yeah, yeah. So
So what are your thoughts about that? Like I say, you do some social mission work. You help people out there in society get, a legitimate equity, in the work at hand and what's available out in community and so forth. What are your thoughts about equity for women, and what are your thoughts towards that way you're hearing about with military?
um well, I think if I mean, I say this. I mean, I think it's good that women are able to do what they want to do, if they're really passionate about it and whatever. Then they should be able to do what they want or put their mind to. Um, that kind of thing, not be held back
One of the
because
things that's happening in aviation now is the guys at my age, I'm already retired, but that whole bunch is retiring. So there's a new batch that are needed. And I would like to see more women applying. I would like to see more women getting involved in aviation because they're good at it when they do.
Yeah.
There we go. Marks how this, show. I'm glad you took this twist to this, Roger, today, and looked at the unity factor of it, unifying men and women. And Roger, you're a veteran, you're a vet, and I've been told by other people, that there's something real there in the veteran community, that the male veterans as a collective could be doing a lot better in raising up the women veterans, and also helping folks like myself. I'm not a veteran, but I think women veterans out there, so they serve in the military, you're bringing up actually in service during time of war, how there's that dynamic, but then it carries forward when they re-enter into the civilian space. What are your thoughts about that, Roger, in terms of the room for society and the male veterans to, help create better equity for the women veterans? What are your thoughts there?
It's a good question, but it's not a fair shake. Us guys are very macho. Us aviation guys are very macho. And I don't want to use the term that we actually use to describe a woman pilot. It's derogatory and I won't use it. But we treat them badly. And I once went to, I'll give you a story. I went to Boeing to pick up an aircraft for American Airlines. And I usually get there early and I go over the paperwork. I'm looking at stuff. And the guy came in that was going to fly with me when we went to check out the plane. And I'm sitting there in this room, and there's this female test pilot for Boeing who is a badass. She is one of the best, but this guy doesn't know her. So he comes in, he said, "Hey, Raj, what are you looking at? What the paperwork say? Is there anything wrong with this piece of garbage Boeing is trying to sell us?" And I said, "Well, this guy, by the way, this guy came from being a pilot for Revlon. We called him Blase. His name was Blaze. We called him Blase. And this guy was ridiculous, man. And he made a comment about this woman pilot, and it was embarrassing. And it set the whole process back. From a 3-day process, it went into a 5-day process just because of a stupid comment by a guy who didn't really think before he opened his mouth. And he insulted someone who was going to help us get through what we were doing. How stupid can you be? But that's the mindset of men. We think this is our field, this is our area, we dominate it. What are women showing up doing? I completely disagree with that, especially today.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Good, good insight there. Yeah, great story because I think it's got a twofold benefit. I think this emphasis for military veterans, that's really what you're serving up today to really look at that specifically. But then, kind of like we look here with, a history that unites. I guess my pointer gets kind of lost in this virtual stuff, but over there, history that unites. I think the point is that when you get the moral of the story, no matter who you are out there watching and listening to this, the opportunities we can apply it to our churches, out in our school space, out in politics, out in family life, da 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 da. And so to me, Roger, is what I feel I signed up for working with you on this, because you're giving us fuel for the fire. You're giving us energy to say, when we wake up today, what do we want to do? And is unifying part of what we put into our days? And I think, to be honest, I think, at least in my circles, or, I don't know, people that would identify with me with what I'm going to say, that I really didn't look at it that way as a daily thing to worry about unifying, because you just kind of have your own identity. You just go out there, do what you do, and you say what you say, maybe saying some stuff before you think, like that other gentleman. And you don't realize how these things can be putting a wedge, to your point, to progress, that people are on the ready to help you. And then all of a sudden they're like, whoa, did that just happen? I think I'm going to go the other way. So you really have something here when you tell these stories of history, that it brings us together. Emily, do you have any final comments before we go into the concluding session of this? But just want to bring you in, Emily. What are you thinking?
I'm not sure, but I enjoyed that story or the conversation. That was a good conversation today. So,
All right, Roger, any other points, thoughts, any other wrap-up stuff you want to bring into this?
The main point, Kurt and Emily, is we are so much more similar than we are different. And that's all my stories try to tell. Show that we are so much more similar than we are different. Men, women, and children. We're all the same.
Okay, sounds good. So, Roger, I just want to allow you to make two quick more points. We're doing this in so far in all the videos you're doing with me. I'm having you do this before we sign off. Just real quickly, with the No More 9 to 5 Club, let's just do a little shout out and any thought you want to share about what is the No More 9 to 5 Club.
Well, the No More 9 to 5 Club is amazing. Those guys have moved me more than anything else I've tried. It's been amazing between Jason, Willard, Maury, Alyssa, Wendy. Those are some really heart-centered, experienced entrepreneurs who are willing to work with people that are willing to help change the world for the better.
Absolutely. And speaking to changing the world for the better, No More 9 to 5 Club has the No More 9 to 5 Foundation.
Yes.
And so I love what you're doing, bringing into this realm where the foundation can help play a role in Haitian Orphans Wish and so forth. So again, if you can make some similar commentary, I learned about Haitians Orphans Wish through you. But before we go, I want to make sure everybody watching, listening knows what they're doing and the benefit
Haitian
in
Orphans
Haiti.
Wishes is a nonprofit organization started by some friends of mine, some educated Haitians in Long Island. And they're doing an amazing job. They're supporting an orphanage that provides basic education and also what do they call it? Education, workers' education. Gosh, the term is slipping me right now. But they provide education for trades and basic education as well. And they're helping orphans in Haiti. And there's a lot of them. There's quite a few of them, and they need a lot of help.
Absolutely, absolutely. So yeah, when you bring to us history that unites, and we're partnering with you in this, in other spaces, other people have taught me, just really what the gift and the right that everyone has to belong. And when you talk about an orphan, I don't want to claim to speak to it a lot. I really haven't done much to open myself up to this world. So it's the great opportunity you're helping me come through the door on more. I have more learn of orphans through watching TV and, looking at stories and movies and that kind of stuff. So to really have a real life thing going on in Haiti, what an opportunity. But, I just look at how are we doing helping orphans really feel that hug, that love, that they belong in this world and they have every chance as any of the other 8 billion people on the planet to become the best version of themselves and all the things. So I'm really excited about this collection, how I have this united on my virtual background. I'm really excited about this collection, and thanks for making it possible, Roger. And so we did the practice of women first. We let Emily start the show, and I think Roger and I are going to agree. We're going to give Emily the last word. Emily, take us on out of here. Any last thoughts? And you can wrap us up and close us out.
Thank everybody for tuning in, and encourage everybody to tune in next time. And yeah, until next time, everybody has a safe and productive week.